All right, guys, thank you for joining me again here on Standing in the Gap with Chad podcast. I am here today with soon to be or could possibly be the Washington County new sheriff. I'm sitting here with Mr. Carter, and we're going to be out asking some questions, see where he stands. Rex, it's a pleasure to have you with me, and I appreciate you taking time to sit down with me. And if you're ready, we'll just jump right on in.
Absolutely, Chad. I appreciate all that you're doing to reach out to all the candidates and myself. And I think this is it's a great service that you're doing, because I believe that the more that people are informed, the better choice they'll make when it comes to time for them to vote.
I agree. All right. So you probably already know the first question I'm going to ask.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That is, are you a Christian?
Yes, sir.
And can you share your testimony of how you came to know the Lord?
Sure. I grew up in church like probably most people in Southwest Virginia did. You know, we a lot of people kind of jokingly would say we had a drug problem. We got drugged to church whether we want to go or not. But that's a good thing. That's a good kind of problem. And really, my coming to the saving knowledge in Christ as a young man really put me on a path of really wanting to help people in ministry. And so I'm still active in ministry. I still work with people in that aspect. And I really think that when you look at the journey that a person takes on their faith, you go up, you go down, and we've all been there. When you really think about what Paul would write, and he would remind the church at Ephesus that we're saved by grace. It's God's grace, and we're thankful for God's grace. What He's done in my life. I will be the first one to tell you, I am not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I have failed. I've made a lot of mistakes, but I'm thankful to know that God is still in the business of forgiving, and God is still in the business of really helping us to become more of who we should be. And so I think that I've had people, it's really interesting, Chad, I've had people that would say, well, how can you work in ministry and still pursue a career in law enforcement? How do the two mesh together? Well, if you go back and you study the book of Romans will tell us about the authorities that are ordained, and that God gives us authorities in our life. And so I think when you mesh the two, it gives you a well-rounded picture of what grace and justice could really do for people.
Yeah. To say a little further into that, there's so many people want to preach love only without ever examining the fact that not only God is love, but God is just.
Yeah.
And
right.
Because He's just, our sins, better be under the blood.
Right.
And but I'm glad you said that. Okay. So give the public and us some who you are, where you came from. How did you get into law enforcement?
Right. Well, originally, the whole story starts over in Scott County, and I grew up there out in the country on the farm, like most probably people around here did. And we worked in tobacco and hay and cattle, and a lot of the things we did on the farm: hunt, fish, raise a garden, all that good stuff. But really, my time in getting into law enforcement came right after my time at Emory and Henry College. I went to Emory, played football there, and really enjoyed my time at Emory. I ended up with 3 majors, so I graduated with an interdisciplinary degree in both communications, business management, and political science. During my senior year at Emory is when I decided that I wanted to get into law enforcement. I ended up testing for both state police and the U.S. Marshal Service. Nothing really panned out for about the next year or so. So during that time, I worked in television and radio, and just really learned a lot more about the communication side of the world, so to speak. And that was a great experience, because in the media, we got to meet a lot of people, travel around and cover bowl games and all that. So it was a wonderful experience. But my calling was really more to serve people. And so at that time, I then entered the state police. They called before the U.S. Marshals did. And so I went on that path and served in the state police for over 20 years. I worked the Richmond area, Roanoke, and then, of course, here in Southwest Virginia for a number of years. And so I think it was really a just the way that life worked out and the journey and the path we're on that leads us to this point. Over the last 7 years, I've done a lot with both Washington and Scott County Sheriff's Office in reserve deputy capacity. And of course, I do private security and human resources for a company down in Bristol now. So I think it all meshes together. And that, to me, really helps bring about a good, well-rounded perspective to things.
Yeah, good deal. A lot of people have a very narrow view of what the sheriff does.
Right.
It's drugs, tickets, go to jail or not go to jail. It's pretty narrow.
Right.
But I mean, I know, and there's a lot more. But for those who are watching this, kind of give an overview or what you can of the job, because I know there's a lot that really goes into being sheriff. Tell us about what the sheriff does.
Right. Well, you look at the sheriff's position, and the sheriff is aside from the Commonwealth Attorney, the sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer for the county. Now, in that, of course, we have state police, we know, but that's a separate organization. State police, does not have actual boundaries such as the county sheriff's office does.
Right.
So, for example, the county sheriff will take care of law enforcement matters within the geographical area of Washington County. Now, you've got your administration division, and that's going to include things from your staff and your dispatch and all of that. But then you've also got investigations. That's the folks there that are investigating the crimes, and those are the ones that's going to get more involved, more in depth in certain crimes as well that they're investigating. But really, the meat and potatoes of the sheriff's office is really going to be the patrol division as well as your community service outreach. Mm-hmm. And so those are the guys you see out here patrolling the roads. Those are the ones that are, whether it's speed enforcement or DUI or drugs or anything like that. But there's also a couple other things that people don't realize, and that is court safety, and that is also animal control. Yeah. And so those are very, very vital services that the county sheriff's office provides to the courts and then to the citizens as well. Yeah. Because you've got stray dogs, you've got an animal bite case, whatever it may be. So those are other vital aspects of the sheriff's office. So that's just to name a few of the responsibilities.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I had a question come in earlier, and I'll try to get to it a little later. And it's not that I'm trying to throw an extra question on you, but it's a question that after I was asked this, it's been a question that I remember coming about throughout history. So it's not a trick question. It's not a go get you question, but I do have a question I want to add.
Sure.
After a while, because you are the potential incoming sheriff.
Right.
So it does go a little bit more towards you coming in the office.
Absolutely.
We'll go to that in a little while. Now, my understanding is that you're definitely running as an independent, but I had heard that you had run as possibly a Democrat in the last election. I don't know. I don't remember, and I didn't see any information otherwise. But I said that to ask this question: what are your political beliefs? I know you're running as an independent, but do you lean in that spectrum of Democrat to Republican or liberal? That far extreme, either direction. Where do you find yourself in that spectrum?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because I've had a lot of people, even recently, would say, "Oh, well, Rex, you're a Democrat, or you've approached the Democrat Party to run as a Democrat." And all that. That is absolutely not true. So I'll go on record today. I've gone on record. I'm running as an independent candidate to serve all people. Now, my background is conservative. I am a very, very strong supporter of your constitutional rights, your First Amendment, your Second Amendment, your Fourth Amendment. I am. In fact, I brought with me today, Understanding the Constitution, 10 Things Every Christian Should Know About the Supreme Law of the Land. This is written by David Gibbs and his dad. This is a study that I'm actually teaching on Wednesday nights, because I believe that every person should know, what does the Constitution say and how is it applicable to us today? What did our forefathers say? So I'm conservative. I support the Constitution. I believe that every person has an equal right to be represented and to be served, whether they're Democrat or Republican. And that's the reason I'm running as an independent, because we do not need politics or political ideologies in the area of law enforcement. If you call me up and you say, "Look, I have a need for service," it shouldn't matter what your political beliefs are. I should say, yes, sir, Chad, we'll be right there.
Yeah.
And we're there to help you in whatever the situation may be. And that's the way that I've ran before. I'm running again, because we have got to be more about serving the people rather than, fulfilling, political promises and ideologies and all that.
Yeah. Now, I know I've asked this question to pretty much every candidate because I really want to hit home to anybody who watches these videos. There's been some real debate in the last year or two about separation of church and state. And, I have a copy of the Danbury Baptist Church letter.
Right.
I have a copy of Thomas Jefferson's letter in reply. And I have a copy of his draft letter, which has got the strike through of the words that he wrote, but chose to go a different way of saying the words. And when I read into the context of that, it bears, and I'm not going to say what my view is, but I do, and I'm sure you probably get what I'm saying. However, regardless of what your views are, whether it's Democrat, Independent, Republican, Christian, the way we believe, it bears heavy weight in the way that we act, the way that we do our lives, we conduct our jobs. There's no real way to separate being a Christian from your job or being a Democrat from your job or a Republican. If that's what you believe in, that's how you're going to judge your job. So I guess in saying that, my question would be, or my assumption would be, you would do your job as a Christian conservative as the sheriff. That's the kind of mentality that you would bring into your job.
Right. Well, you look at it this way, Chad, and you bring up a good point. Everybody is guided by whether they are a person of faith, whether they have their moral conscience, whatever they may follow in life, that's going to guide them, right? And the amazing thing about our Constitution, I don't have to agree with somebody who has a different faith than me. I don't have to agree with them, but by the very means of what this position entails, I have to protect their right to worship and believe the way that they do. I may not agree with it on that personal level. In 2008, I was faced with this very issue. In 2008, I was serving as a state police chaplain, and we were handed a directive by our colonel that said that we would no longer be allowed to pray and mention God or pray in Jesus' name. Well, because I felt that violated my First Amendment right. Therefore, there were 6 of us chaplains in the state that resigned in protest over that. And we fought that for 2 years until the ruling came back that as a chaplain, you could pray as your faith or your conscience dictates. So when you look at our leaders across history, our founding fathers, they were guided by a moral principle, a biblical principle. And when I look at the potential of us taking office as sheriff, I think that we need to lead with compassion. I think we need to lead with firmness. And I think there has to be a level of justice and a level of grace that is implemented in there. And when you lead one by example, but you also lead in such a way as to influence people's lives, I think that is going to come through. And can I respect somebody for maybe they don't think or believe the way that I do? Well, sure. That's the beauty of our nation. That's the beauty of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights,
Freedom,
the freedom of that religion.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you mentioned church state, because that's not in the Constitution.
No, it's
a lot
not.
of people think it is, but it's not. And I respectfully just tell people, look, it's really not. Do a little bit more research.
Yeah.
And I just really feel that when we care about people from the aspect of being the leader and being a compassionate leader, but can lead with the direction that our faith and our conscience dictates, and yet be respectful of other people, then I think we're going to see a much more effective agency.
Well, that kind of goes to one of the questions, and I don't know that I actually worded it this way or put it in this questionnaire for you guys, because everybody's questions were kind of a little bit different.
Right.
But there's a real political divide in the nation as a whole, and that kind of alludes to this next question. There's a lot of things that are going on. The crime levels are going up. There's divisions in a really wide spectrum. There's not that kind of common ground there used to be. And that seeps into your rural areas, like in Washington County. How do you see, well, first off, how do you think that we can, as Washington County representatives, show the nation that we can not be divided? We can be adamantly working together, regardless of being Republican, Democrat, or Independent. That's something I would love to see Washington County be the real diplomat towards the state of Virginia in the United States, is that we can work together. How do you think that? How do you see that?
The way I look at it, Thomas Jefferson wrote when he was penning the words, "All men are created equal." All men, all women, we all have the equal opportunity to be who we're called to be. Whatever pursuit that we want to choose in life, we can do that, and we can do that together. Now, here's what you find, and maybe you've seen this. I know I've seen it. There's been a lot of people who say, well, if you are a Republican or you're a Democrat, then you automatically, you are put in this box over here on this side. But let me ask you this, and I was talking to a gentleman the other day, and he said, well, if you've got to be one or the other. And I'm like, well, let me look at that for you. Just let's talk about that. I said, if somebody is kicking down your door at 2:00 in the morning, are you going to call the White House? Are you going to call your congressman? If your personal property taxes in Washington County are impacted because of a decision the Board of Supervisors make, are you going to call somebody in D.C. or in Richmond? More than likely, you're going to be coming right over here to Abington to see somebody at the county building. Here's the thing. This is why local elections are so important. We have to vote for the person. Vote for the person. Vote for the person that's going to do the right job, the best job that impacts your life on this local level. When we start bringing national politics into this local level, then you're starting to see things get all mixed up. Well, if you're a Democrat, that means you're this, or if you're a Republican, it means that. Definitions have changed over the years. We've seen that. Oh, yeah. My goal would be to look. Maybe we agree to disagree on some things. That's fine. But what is our common goal? If our common goal is to make Washington County a safer place to live, that we see crime reduced, that we see more drug arrests, that we see more people trapped in addiction that are getting the help they need, that should be our goal, to work together to help one another. And when we're about a more selfish agenda, that's not going to work.
Yeah. I know, and I don't mean this as a shout out to Miss Dove, Goodpasture, but I really I like something that she said in the interview that I've done with her. So please don't think bad of me for
no endorsement. I got you.
It's not an endorsement, but I did like something she said. She said, I can't find myself being a liberal or progressive. I'm for the community.
Right.
And she said that there was a number of things that could be done in Washington County to kind of keep people out of jail, to help teach them how to do, help get them off of drugs, teach them skills to do that. And she was kind of leaning more that way than she was pushing just jail time. Now, she did go on and say that if they needed jail time, she was for it.
Right.
But if they were, first time, they were addicted, but first time offenses, really working. And that kind of said something, and I brought that up because of this. As representatives of this county, and like you said, we're here to try to work together.
Absolutely.
We really want to see everyone succeed. And it does when they are successful, and drugs get stemmed, and there's not as much drugs in the area, we are more successful.
Well, we are. That's why I serve on the advisory committee for Washington County Drug Court. I go to the drug court graduation. We go to the meetings. We see people who have been trapped in addiction, that they're given a second chance at life. Drug court is a fabulous program. I would love to, one of my goals is to sit down with the Commonwealth Attorney's Office and the courts and find out, is there a way to fast track people into that program? I don't know, but I'd love to have that conversation.
She mentioned that.
Drug court is a fabulous idea. And on vote411.org, I also answer that very question in that, what can we do to reduce the recidivism rate and what can we do to help rehabilitate or to get these offenders who are coming out of incarceration to be productive citizens. And it is exactly what you're saying, what she was saying, and the ideas I've got. It used to be you'd have inmates grow a garden, teach them a skill, and for every so many days or weeks or months that they successfully complete another step, it's like a step program, then maybe they get a few days reduced off the sentence.
Yeah.
You incentivize that to that degree, and you make better citizens.
All right, so kind of along the same question, but a little different. We're seeing nationally crime go up, and
Yes, sir.
that is seeping in. It's dwindling down into rural areas, including Washington County. What kind of ideas do you have towards this uptick of crime? And I can't blame any one person. I think it's a national problem that really just spreads out nationally. Right. But what can we do? What can you do to kind of combat this uptick in crime?
Well, in 2020, crime went up 21% in Washington County, and we've seen it steadily increase even over the last 3.5 years or so. And when you look at what is that attributed to, we could look at all the environmental factors, we could look at all the behavioral factors, you can look at all these things. But bottom line is we are seeing people committing more crime. Now, what we've also seen,
on national level?
That's on national, but it's also local level. And so as you said, from national, it is filtering down. We're seeing a lot more influx of people coming into the county. A lot good, but then we've got some not so good. You know, we've seen that. That's a whole other issue to address.
Yeah.
But one of my big goals is to revitalize our neighborhood watch programs. You know, I was at a meeting just the other day, and I was talking to a group of people, and they said, "Well, you know, we've got the neighborhood watch annual meeting that's coming up at the sheriff's office, and that's been done for years. And I know the sheriff's office, they sponsor a meal, and some of the coordinators from neighborhood watch, they come in and they have their annual meeting. Okay, well that's all good and well, but what about taking this back to the community? Now people say, well, there was COVID and all this. I get that, but what about the last year and a half when we've not really had COVID? What's wrong with a proactive approach to reaching out to our neighborhoods, revitalizing the neighborhood watch program, and getting people more engaged? You know, to see something, say something, let us know, let law enforcement know, because if we don't know, it's hard for us to get a grip on anything.
Yeah.
But the other issue is that when you have response times that are 30 minutes, an hour, 2 or 3 hours later, then how are we going to combat crime when you have short-handed staff, when you have long shifts, you know, when you have a 600 square mile county and you're not meeting the needs of the community because of scheduling, manpower, and budget issues? That tells me that when you look at the big picture of things, we've got a broken system that we have to fix.
Yeah.
Well, when you begin to look at it, in 2021, there were 2 grants totaling $3 million that the current sheriff's office did not apply for. I don't know why. I think the current sheriff is a good man, but I don't know how or why that the ball was dropped on that aspect. Speaking of him personally, great guy, but I just think we have missed a lot of opportunities that he's missed as a current sheriff. That's why we're running. We just want to do better, and we want to bring in more grant funding opportunities to supplement, to get more people out on the road, to answer these calls, and to be out and be seen.
Yeah.
And starting with our neighborhood watch program is one of those ways that we're going to do that.
So that actually worked out great, because the question that I told you that I was going to add would have fit very well into that secondary questionnaire that I told you I've done sometimes.
Sure.
In something. You said that there's a real lack of response times as far as how quick we're getting to them, but a lot of that alludes back to funding and not having enough people. So, having said that, I'll break this question down into 2 parts. Do you feel like there are new offices and officers that need to be inserted into Washington County Sheriff's Department? And 2, would you be interested, or have you thought about whether or not you would fire any of the local sheriff's deputies that are already working?
So we have looked at a comprehensive plan you've got Brumley Gap, you've got Mendota, you've got Green Cove. So we've got community centers in those places. Now, at one time, there was an attempt to put satellite positions there, or I say satellite offices, or however you want to define that. But to have an office in those areas to where you would have a deputy or two, it depends on the shift, to be in that area. Now, that's one thing that we're looking at that we would like to at least investigate more and see if that's possible. We could research to have more manned satellite offices around the county. Okay, that would reduce response time, because I'm telling you, if you leave from Abilene or Bristol and you go to Tumbling Creek, that's a long drive. Or if you're in Mendota and you get a call to come back, this way, or you're in Colorado. When I was with the state police and worked the county, it's a big county, and 3 or 4 people on the shift, that just doesn't cut it. So I'm also looking at researching air without truck. There he goes. I'm also looking at restructuring the agency to be more effective.
Does that mean adding more offices in the local sheriff's department?
Yeah, that means that we're going to get more bang for a buck, right? That we're going to be more proactive, whether it's from the sheriff all the way down, that everybody is out answering calls, doing what they need to do to be a help to people. Okay, as far as that goes, I'm looking at remodeling some of the shifts, so that way we've got better overlap coverage. So we're not having to have guys work long shifts and then overtime and all that, but actually by working a little shorter, and then also by overlapping the shifts. So I've got some good goals for that. As for your second question, I recently posted an open letter to the sheriff's office. Now, whether the guys saw it or not, maybe this video will reach out and people will read it. But I've gone on record as saying, look, if you want to continue to work at the sheriff's office, if you believe that you can work to a professional standard of integrity and compassion and help people, and that is your goal, and you're willing to work to make a difference in our community, then I would love to work alongside it. And so, as you know, with any election that comes and goes, anytime there's a change of administration, that those people that are there, the men and women in the sheriff's office, they are offered an opportunity to apply, because what happens is people don't get fired. They either get reappointed, because it's a misconception that you are either hired or fired. You're really appointed or reappointed, or you're not appointed or not reappointed, I guess you could say. So I want every person at the sheriff's office that feels that they would love to come on board and they would work by the standards that we set forth, that we'd love to have them. And that's going to require a very simple application. We'll do the interviews, our background checks. We're going to jump through the hoop, each and every person, and then the decision will be made based on their qualifications, their experience, their desire of what they want to do, and if they're going to be a good fit for that for our administration. If so, look, I'm willing to have them on board. If somebody feels that they cannot work for me because of the standard that we set, if they feel that their thinking clashes with my thinking and they don't want to work, look, I'll wish them the best. I'm not going to harbor any ill feelings toward anybody. If they're like, look, Rex, I can't work with you, we'll part as friends and wish you well. There may be some who want to retire. I don't know.
Yeah.
But what I do know is that the letter I put out, I was very clear in it. I want people to stay on board that's willing to do the good job and to work in a professional, standard way, and to go here, let's make a difference and help people.
Good deal. All right, so we have had problems with the homeless population in the city of Bristol and in Washington County. It's growing. I've heard rumors that some states have bussed some of them in a little here late at night to drop them off.
Right.
I don't know how they got here, but it does seem to be a growing, or has been a growing problem. How do we deal with that?
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to look at it not just on a local level, but also on a regional and state level, because you're absolutely right. There have been people bussed into Bristol, one-way bus tickets from Lynchburg and Knoxville. I know that for a fact, that they've been bussed in. Now, right, wrong, yeah, it's why Bristol? there are a number of reasons why, I think, and it's just pure conjecture on that. But you've got a casino. People think, well, hey, there's money, so we'll send them there. I don't know. That's up to the research down in Bristol. But what I do know is that we do see people that are coming through. Now, what do we do about it? Well, if obviously they violate the law, we have to take law enforcement action. Sure. But if it's somebody who they just need that helping hand, they're passing through and they just need someplace to stay, someplace to go. Look, we've got places in Bristol. We've got ministries that will reach out to people who are homeless. I've got a good friend of mine that does a homeless outreach ministry. Denny
Mitchell.
Yep. He does a great job,
Yeah,
and
I
he
know
is
Paul
willing to
Denny.
work with people to hey, do you need can we help you get a copy of your birth certificate, your driver's license, an ID card? Can we help you just to give you something to eat?
Yeah.
I mean, there are enough ministries around here and resources, and it's about connecting the dots.
Yeah.
It really is. So I think one of the things we do is to assess that person's need. I talked to a guy that was out fixing up one of my signs. I guess the weather had gotten a hold of it. And this guy's name was James. James was walking up Lee Highway. And so he saw me fixing my sign. He kind of watched it. I said, how you doing, buddy? He said, good. And I said, where are you headed? He said, well, I'm headed to the Appalachian Trail. I said, okay. Now, James did not have very much with him. He had a little backpack about as big as your tablet or my clipboard, and just the clothes on his back. And I said, well, James, what are you going to the Appalachian Trail for? And he said, well, I'm from down in this part of the country, but life has just beat me down, and I'm going to go back up north. I'm going to hike the trail back up north because I had better success there. I said, okay. I said, well, look, I said, my truck's full of junk. I said, but if you would like to have a ride, I said, jump in the back of the truck. I'm going up to the next exit. I was about a mile away. And he said, and he stopped and he looked at me and he said, you'd really do that? I said, well, yeah. I said, just if you want your ride, I said, save you a few steps. He got in the back of the truck. We went up to the next exit and let him out. I had a couple of bucks. I said, James said, look, I don't want to offend you. I said, but I'll give you a couple of dollars, all I got. And I said, I wish you well. And he said, you know what? He said, I'm amazed that people would still be willing to reach out and help. Now, I didn't do that, and I don't share that. It's nothing on me. It's just, again, who God put in my life to help that day. Yeah. And if we can just look at people through different eyes, rather than, well, what have you done wrong, but what can we do right to help people? Absolutely. I think that'll make a difference.
And when we get so caught up in tablets and phones and this and that life in general, it really takes away from a number of things. It takes away our walk from God. It really puts a big hindrance. And two, it takes away our ability to be humans.
Yeah.
And when we can, I see a lot of people on different YouTube channels that I follow, and even here at the farmers market, I meet people that they're back into, they love growing, they love the simple life. It's not easy work, but it's simpler life.
Right.
But it gives them an opportunity to focus more on family, faith, and things like that. And it seems like more people are needing that today because we're so consumed with everything. Being a good citizen is very important. Being a Christian is more important, because if we're truly walking with God the way that we should be, our hearts will have that compassion, but yet that strength to help people in the right way.
Yeah. And I think that's what we can be. A lot of people say, well, the sheriff's office, law enforcement, you've got to, this is the hard line, this is what you got to, and look, if the Code of Virginia says that this person commits this kind of crime, they should be arrested. Absolutely. Yeah. That's what the law is. If there are opportunities to serve and to help people, then I think that should be paramount as well.
Yeah. As sheriff, we're seeing a lot of chipping away at our First Amendment rights and our Second Amendment rights. And it don't take a brain surgeon to know about everybody around here carries, including me.
Right.
Most of us are just good all around law-abiding citizens. We love to hunt, shoot, fish. But there's a lot of things coming out of D.C. that is really chipping away at our rights, both First and Second Amendment. And when we were discussing setting down as an interview, you and I touched on this a little bit about the sheriff's authorities and what they can and can't do, and what the state police are required to do under federal guidelines and under state. How do you see your ability to protect Washington County citizens, especially when we look at whether or not what they pass may not necessarily be constitutional?
Right. Well, anytime you have a challenge to a constitutional amendment, I think it is incumbent upon every individual, every sheriff, every law enforcement officer, every citizen,
Yeah.
to research that and say, okay, what is this proposed legislation or this law that's coming? Is that going to support my right as a citizen to keep and bear arms, or is it going to infringe upon that right? And we know that if it infringes upon that right, then we've got to decide: do we follow the Constitution? Do we follow the law of the land, or are we going to follow a politically motivated federal mandate? And it really gets down to, what are we going to do? Well, I think we've got to preserve our constitutional rights.
Right.
We have to. If you start taking away the Second Amendment, then the First Amendment is going to follow, and then you have no Fourth Amendment to protect you against government overreach, search and seizure. So the way that the Bill of Rights was written, it is to protect us on every level, and if we go outside the scope of that, then I think we're going to have problems in this country, and that's what we're seeing. I mean, look at what happened. What was it in Arizona? I think it was that the government. Well, we're going to declare. I'm like, look, you've got to be smart, but you got to have some common sense in this stuff too.
Yeah. And that's the kind of chipping away I'm talking about. It's not just the D.C. officers that are doing this. It's pretty much national wide. If they have an agenda that they hate the Second Amendment right, every time that an official like her does something to chip away, it just opens a door for another governor or another federal representative to say, well, let's build on that.
Well, it does. And, when you begin to look at what does the Bill of Rights offer to a person in this country, and you go back and you think about what did Jefferson write, their Declaration of Independence, all those things, and you begin to see that if we are truly a nation, that we're all men, all women, that we are created equal, that we have that we all have that opportunity for that inalienable rights to pursue happiness, to pursue life, then when whatever it is, if it's an attack on the Second Amendment or the First Amendment or whatever that attack is, begins to erode and take away that's where we're running into problems.
Yeah. So the next question you kind of answered, because I threw it all together as one, same basic question on First Amendment rights, but you kind of hit on that. We have constitutional carry or concealed carry, and we have a sanctuary status for our county as far as guns go. How do you feel about that, and do you think there will come a time where we may need, as Washington County representatives, to add on to that sanctuary county in Washington County to kind of stem what the state might hand down?
Yeah. Well, I think I'm thankful for concealed carry, because I teach a lot of concealed carry classes, and there's a lot of people I've taught over the years that they're like, look, I need to protect myself and my family. Constitutional carry would even strengthen in behind that, because if the Constitution says you can carry, you carry.
Yeah.
And so that's for those people to choose. I've actually had people in concealed carry classes who said, you know what, I don't like guns. I don't really care for them, but I want this class for education, so if I ever decided that I wanted to carry a gun.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? And they said, look, they said, it's not that I'm anti-gun, it's just that my choice is I just don't feel. And I'm like, that's within your right and scope, and I thank you for being here, because they want to learn what it means to be a person that, to conceal carry, and so I'm thankful for people who they're honest about it,
Yeah.
and there are some people like that. And hey, you know what? That's great.
There's a real misconception when it comes to guns. I worked a previous job, so I won't tell myself too much, in which I worked with college-age students.
Yeah.
And they were quite amazed when they came from upper Pennsylvania, New York, different places, at how many guns they saw down here.
Right.
And I'm like, what's wrong with that? My 14-year-old killed his first deer last year.
Yeah.
For us, guns are more of a tool than they are an actual weapon.
Well, it is.
We use them as tools.
Yeah.
But I took the opportunity. Said, I'll tell you what I'll do. A couple of the young men said, would you show us how to shoot a gun? Like, I can't at this job, but if you want to meet me after the job as friends. So I took them out to the farm, and me and my youngest son, we took out a shotgun, a pistol, a rifle, and different things. And I'm telling this for a reason. I promise I am. They were amazed at how well Hunter was safety minded because I taught him, and how that it could be fun and safe.
Right.
And some of them left going, when we get back home, we're going to go find a gun club to become a member of. They loved it. So there's a real misconception, and I think that to that point, a lot of people don't understand it, so they hear and they just assume, well, that's got to be right.
Yeah. Well,
But when people take that time to be open-minded and say, I want to learn, that's a huge step.
Well, it is, and I think that whatever subject is, whether it's firearms, whether it doesn't matter. If you would take the time, number one, to get to know somebody, and then number two, learn more about whatever it may be before you jump into the proverbial public opinion boat. I think that people then will be more educated, just like the videos you're doing here. People want to know. Well, sit down and spend 20, 30, 40 minutes and watch and learn and ask questions. And because you don't know, it's a scary thing to vote for somebody just because you think, well, I know that person. We're friends. All right, you be friends all you want, but where does that person stand when it comes to the qualifications of the job?
And if you're real friends, you'll know where they stand at.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm doing these videos, is so that we are informed.
Right.
They can be informed. All right. I
Gotta fix his hair.
Yeah, I like your barber.
There you go.
He's all right. There's 4 main talking points that I've really heard where I work in my day job. I'm all over the county, and I talk to people, hear things. So the 4 main talking points that I've heard, and I'm not going to get into any names or anything so much, except for one, and it's pretty notoriety, whatever.
Right.
1, lawsuits over officer-involved shootings. But now I think this may be kind of comprised over the last 2 administrations. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, I know there have been officer-involved shootings. As far as I know, and I can research it more, but they were all either shown as to be, good shootings or justifiable shootings, and that really comes from a good strength. I have a little editing there.
Yeah, it's moving.
All right.
Give us about 3 seconds sitting
Sure.
here. It gives me kind of some room to.
Kind of work a little bit.
Yeah, I'm really having to learn all this.
Yeah. Well, you're doing good.
I've been thrown in the water, so to
There you
speak,
go.
on the river.
Nothing wrong
All
with
right, so the second question is the Austin Lee Edwards hire and then arrest.
Right.
I asked Blake this, and I can't remember his exact words, so I'm not going to try to say that. But his reasoning was, we all got bumfuzzled in that.
Yeah.
He had already been working for the state police.
Right.
Background checks was there. Your thoughts?
Well, how long have you got? I know we'll have to edit some of this down. To hire Austin Edwards was a mistake, plain and simple. Did the state police mess up? Yes, they did. They admitted it. They said it was human error on their part. And so based on what I researched, they did not do a deep enough background check. Therefore, they hired them. They put them through training. Okay, fair enough. They said, we messed up. I said, okay. When Austin Edwards left the Department of State Police in October, I think 28th of 2022, he was actively pursuing a position with Washington County Sheriff's Office. Okay. He quit state police, and then in 2.5 weeks later, we now see him employed as a deputy by Washington County Sheriff's Office. So my question then is, how much due diligence was done on behalf of Washington County to do their proper background check?
Yeah.
Because whether he left state police, whether he left DEA, CIA, the Cub Scouts, whether he left Walmart, wherever he was previously employed, should not have mattered in the essence of who is now responsible for the background check.
Right.
So I think, in all due respect, that the sheriff's office failed to do a proper background check. There have been different rumors that I've heard, though I cannot confirm or deny. I don't know. I'm just telling you information that I've gotten that, well, it was a computer error or whatever it may be. And I look at this way. I worked in VCIN, in the Virginia Criminal Information Network, for over 5 years. That is the network that houses the information that would tell you about TDOs, ECOs, warrants, and all of that. Did Austin Edwards have a TDO in his background that prevented him from possessing a firearm? Yes, he did. In 2016, he threatened to kill his father, attempted to commit suicide. He was taken into custody, an ECO was issued. Then a TDO was issued for him to be detained. Had a check been done through the local records management system, through Sheriff Pack, whatever you want to call that, his name would have come up. Why wasn't that done? I've had people say, well, Sheriff Andis is not to blame for the death of those 3 people in California. Okay, fair enough. If Sheriff Andis is not to blame, then my question is, then who signed on the bottom line of that paper to hire him? Whose signature was on there? It was the current sheriff. I look at it this way, Chad, and again, I like Blake as a person. I think he's been a tremendous husband to Kim, and my deepest condolences to him and his family. And our church, we had prayed for him, for Kim, and I think Blake is a great father to his children. But as a sheriff, when something happens under your signature, the old saying, the buck stops here. I work for a company that the CEO takes full responsibility when something happens that wasn't good. I look at it this way, Chad. A leader is one who will not accept. A leader is one who will not accept the praise when things go right, but they'll accept responsibility when things go wrong.
All right. So, the regional jail has been a big topic countywide for a long time. Ever since it's been open, there's been a lot of questions and things said about what's the word I'm looking for? Relationships between
Right. Interagency work. Yeah.
There's been extramarital affairs. There's a number of rumors. Your thoughts, and is there anything that the sheriff's department can actually do about it?
Well, as I understand, the sheriff sits on the regional jail board. So you've got a collaboration effort of sheriffs and regional jail authority personnel that sit on this board to oversee and to address issues. Right now, we know the regional jail employees do not work for the sheriff. We know that. I mean, just 2 different organizations. But the sheriff does have a voice on that board. Now, whether it's the jail, whether it's the sheriff's office, whether it's any business, when you have issues that come up that begin to impact your operations, then yeah, those issues need to be addressed. They need to be handled. What's the policy and procedure? Do you have people in place that are properly administering discipline, whether in disciplinary proceedings, whether suspensions or terminations and all that? What's happening there would be my question. I've talked to people who work for the jail, and I know they were concerned about pay, for example, and they were wanting an increased pay. I know that last year the board that Sheriff Andis made some comments that was taken as that he was against them getting a raise. I don't know. You have to ask him that. I'm just sharing with you what people have told me about it. So I think, though, that if the sheriff has a voice to lend to addressing issues, then yeah, I think the issues need to be addressed. If you're on a board to oversee and to provide counsel and guidance, that's what needs to be happening. Now, if there's things like that happening in the jail, then yeah, the issues need to be addressed. But really more so, if you have issues like that happening within the sheriff's office, that is directly impacting community safety, internal operations, and as an administrator, you have to handle those things. But yeah, you got to set the standard too. This is what is expected of employees, and if they go against that or they go outside the purview of policy and protocol, then you've got to handle the situation.
Yeah, good deal. All right. So one question you've already answered. We've already, like I say, some of these questions are just fluid. They just kind of transpire on their own.
Right.
So I'm going to skip the one about New Mexico that I asked Blake because you've already answered that one. What are some things that you feel need to be accomplished and you would like to accomplish? What's your plans for the next 4 years if you're elected to be sheriff?
Well, I've got a long list of goals. How much longer do we have? Well, number one is really getting back to our communities, getting deputies more out in the communities, more community safety programs, our neighborhood watch, our community outreach, and being the law enforcement agency that operates on a very high professional standard of integrity and compassion, that we are there to help people. And I think that's number one goal. Yeah, we do have crime. We do have drugs. We've got people out here who are hurting, who are trapped in addiction. And what can the sheriff's office do? Well, we can be that liaison to help point them in the right direction for resources.
Yeah.
That's another goal. When you begin to think about operations, being very, very mindful of the budget, for example. The sheriff's office right now is sitting at the largest budget in the history of the county, history of the sheriff's office, at almost $10 million, $2.5 million more than it was last year. Now, I know that built into that, some of that money is for deputies for overtime. Okay, great. Let's pay the deputies and let's be there for them and let's help them. If they earn that money, great, that's fine. But what about wasteful spending? I mean, I'd look at myself as a fiscal conservative in that it's not my money, it's your money. You're a taxpayer. You pay the tax dollars, and so you need to know what is happening with the money that you are paying your taxes on. The state gives us money. What is happening with that? And so I want to put in place that every month we have financial statements for independent review. If you want to come by and Chad says, hey, you know what, Rex, I'd like to know what was spent last month on fuel alone. Are we overspending on gas? Chad, right there it is. You want to know, there it is. We'll make that public because look, it goes to the Board of Supervisors. It's in their consent agenda every month on what expenditures are spent. And I think people need to know that. And so I'm going to be just as transparent with whatever it is that you have questions about. And I think that if we put goals in place of caring more for communities and getting back out in the neighborhoods and meeting people where they are and enforcing the laws. I had a lady yesterday asked, she said, would you please, as sheriff, would you please do something about the drag strip running in front of my house? Yes, ma'am. We see that across the county. And I'm not going to be day one art. Everybody gets a ticket. No, but I think that, hey, if you are in violation of the law and you get stopped and you're given a warning, heed that warning.
Yeah.
And let's be safe out here.
Yeah. The old school troopers I knew, like Lonnie Ashby, which we ended up becoming friends, but it's a one warning process.
There you go. Maybe it's where I got it from. I don't know.
But all right, so you feel like transparency and accessibility is pretty important.
It is. It has to be. No matter who you are, no matter what position you are in government, whether you're a board supervisor, whether you're the treasurer, the Commonwealth attorney, the sheriff, whether you sit on the soil and conservation board, if you're in development and authority, wherever you are, if you are there and you're interacting with the public, you've got to be.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that being said, just like I do everybody else, I want to give you a few minutes, just kind of 3, 4, 5 minutes to kind of say what else you want to say that maybe we didn't cover.
Right. Well, we've covered a lot, and I'll wrap it up with this because I think we've touched on a lot of great questions that you've brought to light, and I greatly appreciate you and your time and all the work that you're doing for this. So, first of all, my hat's off to you for this. Next thing I would say is, as people would watch this, if there's something that I've brought up that you've got questions about, please ask, because I'll be right there for you, and I want to answer your questions. I would encourage people, we're in the middle of early voting, go vote. Election day is coming up November 7th. Please check with the county registrar's office, get online if you need to vote, if you need to get registered, you can do that as well. But really, our goal is to bring to light that we need professional leadership that people can trust. And that's what we want to be. I want to be the sheriff that when you see the sheriff's vehicle go down the road, you're going to know that, hey, there goes the sheriff. I can call him, I can talk to him, I can sit down, I can meet with him, whatever problems there may be. I want to be that person that I may not be able to answer every question. I may not be able to solve all the problems, and I may not have all the answers, but you know what? We're going to find the answer for you. And I look at it this way. I know what our starting point is, and I know what our ending point is, and I know what my goals are. Now, somewhere in between, if I don't have the tools to do that, or if I don't have the means to do that, then I want to find the means and the people that can get us to the goal. One thing about leadership is it's about servanthood. And the more that I can be out with people and meet the people, that's what I want to do. That's what I'm asking people to vote for, is to help us to put people over all this political stuff. We've got too much political divisiveness in the nation. We don't need that. We need to be back about caring for people.
I agree. Well, I really do appreciate you sitting down with me, Mr.
Absolutely.
Carter.
This has been great.
And for you guys that are watching, thank you guys for being supportive of us. Thank you for joining us. Please like, subscribe, and share.